Welcome. It has been a minute.
Yes.
I mean, you know something? Even if we missed a few days, it feels like an eternity.
Okay.
So we're just so happy to get back to you guys. But once again, welcome to Date Night with the Crafts.
Yes.
I am your host, Justin Craft, and my beautiful...
What you got to say?
I can't even say it because it's corny. So we're just going to say my beautiful wife, Kiara Craft, Miss Colin Inthick herself. Thank you. Yes.
That's the new name for me.
No. That's just the play name. It's the play name. I was gonna do something on Star Wars, but it was such a letdown. It was such a letdown that I decided not to do it, and I just we'll get into that at a different show, a different time, a different thing. But yeah, that was just. I waited a long time for that. A very long time since I was a child.
To see Star Wars.
To see that in that way, and it was just like...
Wait, I thought you said that you were okay with the way that it ended.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, gosh.
You know, after a while, I thought about it.
Yeah.
And it just...
What was wrong with the way that it ended?
Okay. I don't want to spoil it for nobody, but like... the term backstory, the definition backstory just did not exist. It was like people were just props on the screen.
Okay.
Like, you know, you just had like a bunch of people and it's like, oh, we got to add all these people to make sure that we kind of hit the Star Wars quota and just kind of put them on the screen, and it kind of threw everybody through, and you just got pushed through. And come on. I could sit here and name like 5 characters and be like, well, what happened? And you'd be like, I don't know. Exactly. So you're just like, we don't know, you know, so it just,
you hopefully didn't get the ending. You didn't get the closure that you needed.
There was absolutely no closure.
Okay.
So it was rushed. So hopefully they'll release like a Star Wars Blu-ray release or something that has like an extra hour added onto it where they explain everybody's backstory and all this other shit, and we can get to that. But anyway, okay, cool. So
that's what we did for our date night. We went and saw Star Wars, and then we caught up on the season finale 2 of Mr. Robot.
Oh yeah,
and that was everything you ever wanted.
No, Mr. Robot did not let me down. that was off the chain. Yeah. And if you're not into that show, get into that show.
Yeah.
It's very important. Actually, it's a huge thing on mental health.
It is.
And like I said, in dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
And releasing trauma.
Yeah.
And at the end, to see that happen the way it happened was really dope.
Okay, I agree.
It was really dope.
I enjoy Star Wars too, though. It could be because I'm not as big a fan as you are.
Yeah.
So that's why I've just held my tongue and I haven't crucified you for complaining. I thought it was a good movie. As far as, ending the whole thing, I can kind of agree with you. They could have done a lot better.
Yeah, they could have done a lot better.
Yeah.
So
that's what we did. And also, I think that's it. Just watch some Christmas movies with the kids.
Holidays is kind of like, I don't know. It's one of those things. I know, like, okay, when you've been around on the earth for so long, holidays is kind of like, you get happy, and then it kind of does this thing where it kind of goes down a little bit. Yeah. It's just like, all right, let's just kind of get over it.
But no, I want to start celebrating holidays. Like, we're like, we go like balls to the wall celebration for birthdays. And then we get to Christmas, and I don't get gifts on Christmas, and I'm starting to feel a way about that, Justin Craft.
You get gifts all year.
Yeah, and I know that the PC thing is to say I'm grateful. However, I'm a woman. I need gifts.
You got gifts, though.
What?
We got you jammies. We got you stuff for you.
You can't put we in that. That's the kids. Amaya got me jammies. Amaya, you did very well, Mama. Is very happy. Oh, and I got this. Hold on. I got this, y'all.
Start filming your documentary.
So no, every time you get on your bullshit, you get into your melodramatic Justin Craft bullshit, I'm gonna be like,
melodramatic bullshit
action.
Okay.
And then when you finish, I'm gonna be like, and cut.
Wow.
Thank you, Nick.
Wow.
Thank you. This is the best thing. Now, I am gonna be filming a documentary, so this is so dope for that. But it also is my J Craft prop.
Okay, so I guess I won't give you a reason to use that then.
Okay.
All right.
So you're not gonna be yourself?
Obviously, I'll avoid that then. I'll avoid it with all costs then, because I ain't gonna be.
I like the melodramatic stuff.
You really don't.
I do. I like it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't stay around for the show.
Well, you get tired of it. So anyway, the whole point about my gripe with the whole holiday things is it's so monetized.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, because I feel like if
we're
doing
capitalism.
Right, but if we're just doing a celebration, it'd be kind of cool. But when it gets into that whole thing, like you need to buy someone some shit and do all this shit and then like break your bank and then suffer afterwards because of it. I know, but I'm just saying. I know a lot of people that went through that. The whole guilt trip of it is weird.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It should be a celebration, but it turns into this weird guilt trip, and that shit is just that's the weird part to me.
Okay.
So that was my only thing.
Well, one thing that I did enjoy over the holidays was cocktails. Lots and lots of cocktails. So we're gonna post it. The cocktail for this particular date night is called the Snowflake Martini. So I'm gonna also post that to social media so that y'all will have a chance to try it out. And as always, make sure that y'all take pictures of it, tag us in the pictures so that we can repost it, and just see if you're liking these cocktails. Justin thinks that nobody's making these cocktails, so y'all prove him wrong, because he don't,
Because he knows.
He doesn't know. He don't know everything. He knows some stuff.
Yeah.
But he don't know everything.
Know a little bit. Know a little bit.
But that's about the,
Mm-hmm.
That's about the most I can say about the holiday and our past date night.
Yeah, because this whole year has been a goddamn holiday and a date night.
It has. So, like, we're at the end of the holiday. We're at the end of the year now.
I'm just tired.
I'm fucking exhausted.
Yeah, I'm just tired, man.
All these birthdays, holidays, trips, all that.
All that shit is just tiring, man.
So, I'm glad to be, having everything come to some sort of end and move on to the next year.
Exactly. So, moving on.
Yes. I just want to say, too, last week, we apologize. We couldn't get the technical issues worked out, kind of had a temper tantrum about it. And I just didn't want to have a show because it's a certain conversation I wanted to have.
Right.
And I didn't get to have that conversation. So I'm like, fuck it, I don't want to have any conversation. And that's not fair to y'all. We promise to do this every week, and we have people who look forward to it every week. So moving forward, if we can't get the show, we'll just figure out a way to get the show.
Yeah, we'll just freestyle some bullshit.
Yeah.
There you go. No, but we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
We'll always make sure that we have a backup plan. That was a learning experience.
Yeah, it was.
So, but it's cool and it's understandable when things happen.
Yeah, but it happened 2 weeks in a row where we didn't get to have the conversations that we really wanted to have.
Right.
But
one time it was the guest's fault, and then the other time it was just a technical problem. So it's uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Uncontrollable.
But we're gonna push to make sure that we have those conversations.
Exactly.
And tonight's conversation, I am so extremely happy
which is weird.
Yes. Well, no, I'm not. Why is it weird?
Because the topic is
I'm happy to have it because
it's
so important,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be, like you always talk about, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of things that I don't talk about that people don't know about.
Right.
My story, your story too.
Oh yeah.
I've put a pretty big bow on my story and have served it up to people, so much so that sometimes I believe it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so protective of my family, so I don't always say it because
right.
I don't want to embarrass people or tell more than what I should. But one thing I'm learning is that our stories belong to us.
Yeah.
And they're ours to tell. So we shouldn't feel embarrassed or feel like we're going to throw somebody under the bus or whatever because we're sharing our stories, because our stories are the things that
make us.
They make us who we are, and they can also help other people. So
Exactly.
It's important that we share our stories.
Exactly.
So I'll go first,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll let you share yours, and we'll keep it
just
simple.
a few minutes.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that we give our guest a chance to tell her story. But our stories are linked to her story. A lot of people don't know, like when people ask us, well, how did you get from Las Vegas to Houston?
Mm-hmm.
My go-to thing is, well, my mom found a job in the medical center, so we moved because my mom had a job.
Mm-hmm.
But the real reason we moved to Las Vegas, from Las Vegas to Houston, is because of a bad relationship, an abusive relationship. We were running for our life. So we came to Houston as a way of refuge because of the relationship that my mom was in. So one night we're playing video games. Next thing we know, we're being held at gunpoint. And we're traveling in the middle of the night to my aunt's house because my mom's husband was trying to kill her, and he'd actually pulled the trigger. It didn't hit her, but it could have. And we're scared. I'm like 5 or 6 this time. So the very next day, my granddad puts us in a car, takes us to Oak Harbor, Washington,
mm-hmm.
Where we stayed with my aunt and uncle who were protecting us, but he was in the Air Force. He got shipped somewhere else, stationed somewhere else, and then we were in Oak Harbor alone, and he continued to torture us, continued to play games, letting us know that he was coming to get us and would kill us when he found us.
Right.
So we ended up leaving Oak Harbor again in the middle of the night and traveling to Houston to get away from that situation, you know. So I didn't get to Houston because it did become a great opportunity for my family to be here, but it was because we were fleeing a very controlling, very toxic man who felt like my mom was his property, you know. But being in Houston was the protection that we needed and became the opportunity that my mom needed to start over. And at the time, she had 5 children. Right. So it wasn't the easiest of situations to get out of, but it was necessary. And I believe until I was 12 years old, we lived kind of like we were in the witness protection, like none of our family could even know where we were. So we were not only moved away from our family, we couldn't talk to our family for years, you know. And that was hard because we were pulled away from everything that we knew, and we were a pretty close-knit family, very close-knit. So I didn't see my cousins again until we were already teenagers. And it was weird to see them in elementary school. The next time you're seeing everybody again is when y'all are, you know, teenagers, middle school, going to high school. So being in a relationship like that, relationship that my mom had shaped my whole life. Right. Where I'm living my life, where I'm raising my children, all of that would not have happened had she not had that relationship. And then the relationship also too shaped how I see relationships, good and bad. Right. You know, so we're, like we talked about before we had Amaya on the show, about how our relationships are affecting our children. They're affecting our children deeply, and a lot of the times our relationships become their origin stories. Yeah. So my mom's relationship is my origin story now. Right. You know, that's some of my first memories, 5 or 6 years old, being isolated, feeling alone, being a sick child. I had terrible seizures during that time, and feeling like if we got caught, it would be my fault because I was in the hospital and she couldn't move and she couldn't run. Right. You know, so we have to be very careful when we choose and we pick. Sometimes you can't be because you don't know all the time who it is that you are in a relationship with. But especially when you have children, you have to make sure that the relationships that you're creating are going to be, are not going to harm them. Yeah. Not just physically, because we always look at sexual abuse as being the only type of abuse that could harm a kid. But no, emotional abuse is just as significant, and it shapes our life just as much as being molested or anything else. Definitely. Yeah, but definitely that, you know, women go through a lot, you know, when we get in relationships. Men do too, but women, we are so vulnerable in these relationships, you know. So I don't know. I just wanted to be honest and open about that, because people always tend to think that you haven't gone through anything because you have a smile on your face or because you choose to be positive. But the thing is, that haunts me and continues to haunt me every day. And I consider myself to be healed from those wounds, but they still shape my life. I still look over my shoulder. I'm still very paranoid. I'm still very, you know, conscious of who's around me because of that relationship. And that trauma it belonged to, I inherited it, but it was my mom's trauma. That was her relationship that did that to my life. Right. Yeah, I understand that. And it's one of those, you know, it's one of those stories. And like I said, I'm being honest, you know, this stuff is still, it's not fresh, you know, and it's not nothing that it's like, you know, like we're going to cry about it, but it takes a little energy and a little substance to talk about it and bring it up. You know, it's not easy, but it's understandable, you know, and like you said, your story is important. And I think, you know, the way you shared it, and even when you shared it with me back in the day and we finally got a chance to get down to it, you know, I felt it and I understood it. Yeah. You know, because of things that happened to me. Yeah, we have a lot of shared trauma. Yeah, a lot of shared trauma. So like I said, I'll tell my side of it real quick and then we can get on with the show. But it's funny because I think a lot of people don't know, but some people do, you know. But pretty much how I started out was I was born into a cult.
My father, who is Larry Yarber, at the time, it was considered a cult in Racine, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And it was a very big cult that was going on. And, the FBI got involved and, the police and all this. And, all this other stuff had got involved. And I think my mother didn't really realize who my dad was. Once she got into it with him, because he was a career martial artist. He owned multiple martial arts schools.
And he was respected.
He was a very respected guy. He's a very intelligent person, extremely intelligent, very well spoken. So he was very upstanding in the community and so forth, but something happened. I don't know what. I've talked to him personally, but he has his side of the story, and the whole rest of the world has their side of their story. But it was basically deemed a cult. And so at that time, my mom decided, I don't want my son to be part of this. So she took me and ran. Yeah. And we went to Florida and stayed with my grandmother for a little bit. And then she moved from Florida. She met this guy named George. And then we ended up in Austin. Her car broke down. And then we ended up just staying in Austin to get off the grid from my dad, because my dad's reach was very big. So he had people that were pretty much considered like his disciples. They were out there looking for her. And she knew probably the only place that she can hide would be Austin, because it was very unlikely. Yeah. It was a state where no one was at that knew her. That she had no family there. Yeah. So she was completely off the grid, and I guess it worked, because she ended up changing her last name to get away from him, and eventually, she got away. But it put her in a worse situation, because when she was in Austin, she was in an abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship, and it was pretty traumatic. It came a time where, I had to defend her. I think I probably saved her life at least 3 or 4 times from getting killed. In return, I almost ended up killing somebody. I decided I was going to kill somebody because of the trauma and the stuff that was going on. And at that time, I went to therapy. And of course, they deemed me to be fine. But also, too, I was manipulative. So I told them what they wanted to hear.
But you didn't harm anybody.
No.
Okay.
No, but I wanted to, because, and like I said, and you can, and I just want to be honest with people. I know this is going to sound so creepy, but you can really want to kill somebody and actually be sane and be okay. No, I'm serious. I know people are like, oh my God, well, how is that possible? It's human nature. Yeah. If someone puts you through so many things, you will want to lash back and you'll want to fight back. Yeah. And that could equal something that could end someone's life. Yeah. It's just how it is. It happens every single day. Yeah. But anyway, that's how bad the abuse was through her boyfriends. Her boyfriends are constantly beating her up. I'd wake up in the middle of the night. She'd be choked. She's being knocked out in the kitchen, with all types of crazy stuff.
But that shaped your reality about relationships. Yeah,
it shaped my reality about relationships, what you shouldn't do, what abuse looks like.
Tale. Yeah.
Yeah, what abuse looks like, understanding it. Yeah. But in the end, she never really found that love because pretty much all the men were pretty much abusive towards her, because she liked, emotionally unavailable guys. Yeah. She liked guys that were a certain way that just really, they just didn't have no love in them. They were torn apart and bruised themselves. Yeah. So then you got two people that are bruised trying to fix each other. It just gets to that point where it's just like, it's not going to work. Yeah. So after a while, to cut the story kind of short, once I became kind of like Gabriel's age, which, 16, 15, and I was able to pretty much fight, and I was pretty much able to, I had my gang of people that I kind of grew around me. Mm-hmm. Then after that, there was like anybody that tried anything, it was like, it was like, it was just a threat, and, I even got revenge on one of her boyfriends. I caught him on the bus one time. I mean, it's, we're not gonna tell that story.
We're
not gonna get into that story. No. But I mean, it came back. Yeah. It came back. So, and you get caught in that loop. Yeah. And that's one thing I wanted to break with my kids is to show them that you can live a life it doesn't have to involve all that trauma. Yeah. So,
but I just wanted to tell our stories because I wanted to show that it happens in trauma and toxicity and abuse touches can touch all of us. I'm sure it has touched all of us in some way,
Yeah.
and can be kind of the origin or that thing that pushes us to our purpose or to become the people who we're supposed to be.
Definitely.
But that's a segue to our guest, because I want to go ahead and bring her into the conversation and give her an opportunity to tell her story. Okay, so tonight we have a guest that is going to share with us her compelling story of the dangerous side of relationships, one in which should have been the beginning to a long-lasting, loving relationship with her husband and ultimately led to mental health issues, physical abuse, and attempted suicide. While many of us would have given up, this experience has only made her stronger and pushed her to become an advocate in similar circumstances. We have Natalie Pierre, who is a veteran sports reporter and the founder and CEO of mpsportsmedia.com, a Miami-based video production company that tells stories and provides exposure for young athletes. Natalie, thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you unmute.
Did you unmute your
I did.
Okay. So before we get started, I'd like to ask all of our guests, if a book was written about your life, what would be the title?
Ooh. I don't even know. I know I did write when I was in the hospital, and we'll get to that. I know some people are like, why was she in the hospital?
Yeah.
When I was in the hospital for a year and a half. And at some point, I started writing about things. And really, after I got out of the hospital, I started writing about some of the experiences. And I remember asking my brother, I don't know what to call it. And he said, baptized by fire.
Oh.
And again, I don't know if there's so many layers to my life.
Yeah.
That I think that is one thing. And it's something that has absolutely helped bring the biggest and best parts of me forward.
Yes.
There are so many layers to who I've become and been over the last 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to start at your origin story. This journey began with you pursuing your career in sports journalism, right? Take us back to that, because we have the story of you meeting your then husband as a youth, taking time apart, and then coming back together. Tell us, I've read your story, but for our viewers who haven't had a chance to read your story, can you kind of tell them how that relationship began, how it got started?
So I grew up in the Orlando, Florida area, Lake Mary, Florida to be specific, but I was working throughout high school. I played volleyball. I did a lot of things, newspaper, but I worked at Arby's also as just, the counter, everything. And I remember the day that Chasten, my ex-husband, started working there. There was just this thing about him. He was mysterious. I was 16. I was curious. I was like, I want to get to know him. Fast forward, we became, friends. We would hang out every day after work. But I was 16, he was 20. And that became that person for me that I was able to confide in. I grew up, I was the product of an abusive relationship.
Okay. And
I was always in a position for me where I felt like, my mom is talking about, my brother and I are going to see our dad, my younger brother. And he, my mom is like, make sure you watch your drinks. He'll try to poison you. You'll try to do this. And so, I remember when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, having to hear these stories about my father and how horrible he is, but then also be dropped off with him or doing things. And so I think it put me in a position of having to grow up quickly.
Okay.
And also not having room for my own stuff, my own feelings, because my mom had so many feelings, because my dad was unapproachable. And so when I met Chasten, he was a great listener. And so I talked and I talked and I talked, and I was vulnerable, and I spoke about the deepest parts of what made me me, and the walls that I had put up in my life. And I hadn't really gone that deep with anyone. No one knew me at that level. And so it was this bond for me that was really, really special. I had this connection and this closeness to him and this appreciation for him because he listened to me, made it easy for me to talk when that was something that was difficult for me. Okay. So that was the foundation of our relationship. When I left, because I was in high school, when I left, I was 17 when I left for college. When I left for college, I was playing college volleyball, and I was like, I need to focus on this. And the way our relationship was, it was consuming. It was, yes, I still was doing yearbook and newspaper for school and playing volleyball and training really hard at that. But when I was with him, I was with him. We were on the phone and we would fall asleep together every night on the phone. I remember an instance where my dad was paying the phone bill and he's like, who is this number that my dad was talking to for 12 hours a day? He called him and yelled at him and was like, why are you talking to my daughter? It was just, and so I knew that I couldn't go to college and put that much energy into that relationship when I wanted to focus on school and I wanted to focus on volleyball and I wanted to focus on, now this is my opportunity to be about me, to create my future. And so I said, hey, the way that we are, I can't like have this relationship go with me to college because it will hold me back.
Okay.
And so I told them that it was extremely difficult just to, to cut it off cold turkey, but I did with the help of some roommates and other people that helped block his number. Like it was a point where I had them change the passcode to my phone bill because I didn't want to look up his number and call him because that's how connected we were. It was so easy for me to share everything I was going through. And I knew that wasn't what was healthiest and what was best for me.
Okay. So then you reconnected later on. What made you, or what prompted you to make the decision to go back to that relationship?
So I got married when my freshman year of college, to someone else.
Okay.
And it didn't work out, but it was a great relationship for me. For me, I grew up a lot in that relationship.
Okay.
And I learned a lot about myself and I learned how to value myself a little bit more. But we were young, we grew up and we were both very focused on our work. And so that went, at some point when you're both so focused on your work, you have to work at making time for each other. And we didn't do that. And so, we chose our jobs and we were married for 4.5, 5 years, but it didn't work out. And so for me, that relationship didn't work out. I dated a couple people, but I was really focused on my work and I didn't have an example of what a healthy relationship looked like. I didn't know where to go about, like how to go about it, how to approach it, like what to do, because I never had that example.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, but like my parents don't even have like, oh, like that's a really awesome friendship, and like they don't have like people.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea what a healthy relationship looked like. And so I dated a few people. I had this one guy that I was really like into, and he seemed very safe. He was a really, really good guy. And I remember he told me at some point he was moving, and I remember he told me, I would continue this, but I also feel like you're growing up. He said, I don't want to be your whipping boy. and for me that hit hard.
Yeah.
Painful. But I learned a lot from that as well. I moved to Alabama. We kind of reconnected, me and that guy. And but I for me, I was like, I'm getting another opportunity to be better. For him, it wasn't the same anymore, and he didn't take it as seriously. And I didn't realize that until he literally invited me to Atlanta, where I'm staying in his hotel. I'm with him. We're going to dinner. We're doing all that. I was so excited. I got Hawks tickets. I was excited. I was like, I'm going to surprise him. We're going to go to the game. He's like, oh, I got a date tonight. And I'm like, why am I here? Why did you just come to Alabama and visit me 2 weeks ago and then invite me to come here to Atlanta? And I think I didn't, he was such a nice guy that it almost, it blew my mind that he could make me feel like that way.
Yeah.
And so I think I thought back to Chasten, who always made me feel safe. And when that relationship or friendship or whatever you'd like to call it ended, I went for what was safe. I saw Chasten reappear on like Facebook, just checked in, how have you been? And then it picked up right where it left off in terms of my time. So much of my time when I wasn't working was going to him.
Got it.
And we were talking, but we were talking about the past, and we were talking about the good times. And we weren't addressing, oh, you've been in prison the last 5 years, and I've gotten a master's degree, and I've worked for these papers, and now I'm a senior reporter covering, the biggest conference in college football, and all of these things. Whereas I don't know what you've been doing in prison. We didn't necessarily talk about the hard stuff.
Yeah.
We just talked about the fun stuff. We felt very close. I felt safe with him. But I also had guilt. And that's something I had to work through a lot, was I had guilt for cutting him off and then seeing him make one bad decision after another.
Yeah.
And knowing that when he was with me, he was the best version of himself. I knew the things that made him not the best person, but when he was with me, I was able to help make him a better person. And so I felt like I let him down because he had my back, and now I wanted to have his back. So when he felt insecure about, like, what are we doing? I'm spending all this time talking to you. Are we back together? Like, I'm here in Florida, you're in Alabama. So I was like, hey, move to Alabama. Let's be together. Sure. That wasn't the best decision I ever made. And people around me were telling me, that's like why now? And then, all of this other stuff. But whatever. I moved him in. I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But looking back on that, why do you feel that you needed to have him there? What was the
draw, I guess.
The draw? No, the draw was feeling safe. Was it that you needed that sense of security or to feel anchored in life? Was that the reason?
I think I was trying to, I know how to work. I know how to succeed in a career. I know the attention to detail, the work ethic. I know all of these things it takes. And I think in my mind, I was, you're raised, I feel like, as women that, yeah, sure, if you have a career, that's great. But my career was my everything. But I think we're also, as women, encouraged that, like, marriage is the goal. Relationships are the goal. And I didn't even know how to do that. And so for me, I think I was trying to cheat the system. Instead of working and learning how to be in a relationship, I was like, oh, here's a ready-made relationship.
Shortcuts. Yeah, I know. Shortcuts, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shortcut. And so I was like, okay, this is the person I'll do my life with. Yeah. And, I had a lot of, I loved him.
Yeah.
I loved him. I cared about him. And that's why it was so hard for me to just cut him off and not have him in my life. And so when I opened that door to let him back in my life, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so, there's no great, deeper answer other than I thought this is what life is supposed to be. You're supposed to have a career. You're supposed to have a husband. You're supposed to have a family. And, now that I look back, I'm like, I have so many things that are non-negotiable for me. My career is non-negotiable for me. I'm willing to, compromise, but only to a certain extent.
Got it.
And so, whereas some people may have, two really ambitious people or one really ambitious person in a relationship, and they understand that that's known and understood. For me, I didn't lay that out. I just, this is me, accept me. You loved me then. You say you love me now. This is what I'm going to do. Get on board.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, and so that's what it was. It wasn't anything like I felt, I think for me, I was looking to have more in my life other than my career. I think not long before that, I had been in Tallahassee and I was, really doing well in my career. And then I had a situation, and I was able to see how quickly my career had been could be taken from me, no matter how good I was at my job. And so for me, it became even more important then to say, who were you beyond a sports journalist?
Yeah.
And I didn't have a great answer for that. And so I think him being a part of my life again was me trying to answer that question.
So I know the question that you're probably going to ask is, I guess the question I want to know is kind of like, when did you start to notice that this wasn't a good thing? Like, when did you start to kind of feel, I guess, the toxicity or the abusive side of this person? When did that start to kind of happen?
I mean, looking back, the moment that I reconnected with him, it was the foundation of it, because it was, you know, I remember when he got to Alabama, he got there, and I remember the first thing we did, I picked him up from the airport. We went to Walmart, and we're in Alabama. He was white. I mean, he still is white, so he's white, I'm black. We're walking through Walmart, and you just hear people looking and pointing and talking and whispering. And he wanted to like fight everyone in Walmart. And like, we can't live here and do this like 24/7. It's going to be a really, really rough way to live.
Yeah.
And so, but I remember that night we went out to eat. We went out to some restaurant, and a guy that I had been just not anything serious, just like talking to, like my sister, I remember told me like, he's a great guy. Like, you guys make beautiful kids. And so I was trying to like listen, but I was really, really bored with it too. Like, he was a super nice guy, but I just wasn't like feeling it. But I remember he called me while Chasten was in the bathroom at dinner.
Ouch.
And I was like, hey, I'm actually like back together with my ex. Sorry, like, you know, I can't really like continue to like do this. And I remember he came back out, Chasten came back out and was like, were you on the phone? Who were you talking to? And from there, it got really, really ugly that first day. But I think for me, the way that my brain works, I'm a lifelong like athlete. And so number one, I don't like to lose. I don't like to be wrong. I'm stubborn, and I've worked on that.
Yeah, that's right.
But for me, when everybody tells you this isn't a great idea, and then the moment he gets here, he confirms that, yeah, this is a really bad idea. I didn't say, ooh, this is a bad idea, let's backtrack. I said, I got to work really hard to make this a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. We see that a lot in relationships. You know, people feel like they can fix and they feel like they're the ones that could come in and then mend and glue. It's just so weird too, because in Alabama, you would think that, you know, people have a problem in interracial relationships, but not a problem with incest. I always found that to be weird about Alabama. But anyway, but I get it though. I get it. But, okay. Yeah. So anyway, so that happened. So then at that point in time, he started becoming more abusive. He started, once he saw the phone call, I guess.
But abusive so
emotional or physical? Was
it emotional and physical, or more so emotional?
It was constant emotional. It never really was super physical. There were moments where, like, I'm a fighter. Like, you hit me, I promise I'm going to hit you back. And so he never let it get to a point. I remember there was one point where he was screaming and yelling, and he pushed me in like in a corner against a wall. And, you know, I kind of like pushed him off of me, like he's like breathing down my neck. And I remember he ran me into the wall, and I wasn't there for that. And so there were little moments like that, but it was not like I was coming home and he was like punching me, but it was like, you know, I was sitting there home working, because I was able to work a lot from home when I was home. And he would sit right next to me, and he would, like most people, you would think, oh, my wife is working, I'm going to go in the other room and watch TV, do something else with my life. He would want to like sit there and like watch me. Yeah. And then I would be like, okay, well, I've got to shoot this. I did some like video stuff for the website and at al.com. And I remember I'm like, I got to go to the office and shoot this. He's like, all right, let me get my stuff. And I'm like, I don't need help. And he's like, I just want to make sure that none of your bosses, none of your coworkers, no one is, you know, like, you're not flirting with anyone.
Yeah, you got a work husband. We know. Yeah, we know. But so there was an attachment thing. So let me ask you just a quick side question. Did you notice, did he have a good relationship with his mother?
No. And he never did. He never did. And I think, again, backtracking, obviously there are all these red flags. And it wasn't because I didn't know who he was. I just believed that I was able to help make him better. Yeah. And then I'm also dealing with the guilt of cutting him off and seeing where his life went, where I felt like he could have been so much more.
So you felt responsible for the path that his life had, the course that his life had taken.
Oh yeah, because I remember when I was in that first marriage, he would write me when he was in prison, and I was like, I can't ruin my marriage because my first love needs me, and so I didn't respond. His mom was reaching out to me. I'm like, I can't. Yeah. And so I felt like, if I had answered one of those letters, if I had not cut him off so abruptly, how different could his life have been? And I don't know.
Do you still feel that way? I know that you felt that way then. Do you still feel that you could have made a difference had you?
No. Okay. No. I think the dynamics of our relationship at the beginning clouded my judgment a lot. I think everything from the what our relationship was when I was 16, a lot of people might say, you were 16, he was 20. That was inappropriate to begin with.
Yeah, but it happens.
Yeah, but I think for me, that first relationship, I didn't have an issue with it, really. Yeah. I knew who he was. He wasn't the best of people, but when he was around me, he was better. The whole part 2 of that relationship was super unhealthy, and it was me trying to do something, and it was him grasping onto something. He didn't have anything. He had just gotten out of prison. He didn't know what his life was. Yeah. So no, I don't feel that anymore. I think I look more about like me, what I was going through, so much of the stuff I hadn't dealt with. Yeah. And that I reached for something that I knew wasn't a great idea.
Let me ask you this question, because I'm just kind of curious. The first one, if you don't mind, what he went to prison for, and the second one, did any of the emotional abuse involve racism towards you?
No, there was no racism toward me. I think that he, like, as a white guy, felt like I may go, I'm around all these athletes and coaches, and I'm around, I mean, let's be real, a lot of these press conferences were a ton of like old white men. But I think when he saw me on camera and things, it was with these athletes, and these athletes are like black guys. And even though I was an adult and these were kids, they were 18, 19 years old, and my mind didn't even go there. I think for him, he had so many insecurities. I remember we used to go to the gym in the morning, and I think, I remember one day he didn't wake up for the gym, so I went to the gym without him. And he showed up at that gym so quick and was like, where's my wife? Who is she sleeping with here? I know she's sleeping with someone here. Like, how could I be sleeping with someone here? Every time I've come to this gym, like, you've been attached to my hip. So I don't know how I could have like made this like quick affair like this quickly. Yeah. But so no, there was never any racism, but I think there was insecurities and I think there were a ton of insecurities in who I was and what I had done and made of my life, as opposed to what he hadn't done and what he hadn't made of his life. What was your other question?
No, the other question was, what did he go to prison for?
Oh, so just, he just had a long rap sheet of stupid stuff. I'm not condoning any of it. It's all bad. But things like breaking and entering, things like possession of drug paraphernalia, weed, coke, like all of those things. He's somebody, and I think for me, I shared so much of me with him, and he shared so much of him with me, and I understood why he was the way he was and what he had to deal with as a child. He grew up in Puerto Rico and pretty much was raising himself on the streets at 10 years old. So you wanted something, and you're a kid and you don't have anyone around really showing you how to be a man, you make poor decisions. And I think some of those decisions were taking the easy way out, looking at something and saying, oh, these people have nice things. Oh, and they leave their door unlocked.
Yeah.
I'm going to get nice things. And so I understood, and I think I felt not sympathetic for his situation, but I understood how he was wired and how he thought. And so I thought I could help, make things more clear for him. Okay, that was then, and that was bad, and I'm sorry you went through that, but let's find a better way to do this. And yeah, it didn't work out so well.
Can you take us back, Natalie? Can you take us back to that day? Because I read how you had the tweet, y'all were chilling by the pool, and it was supposed to be a day of y'all reconnecting and, having some fun, relieving some stress. I believe you said had a bottle of tequila in the back seat. How did it go from that to the incident that occurred and of course would change your life forever? Can you bring us back to that day? And just tell, because I've read the story, but I want our listeners again to understand what happened that day and what led you to making the decision that you made.
So it was my birthday, September 8th, 2015.
Oh, I didn't know it was your birthday.
Yeah, it was my 25th birthday.
Okay.
It was also Labor Day, and we were sitting by the pool. I was working because I'm a workaholic. But we were chilling, nothing like super crazy work, just light stuff. Mm-hmm. And one of my bosses at some point had sent me my travel schedule for the upcoming college football season. And I'm looking at it and it's like, oh, you're going to, Texas A&M, you're going to LA. Like I was going to all of these games and there were so many away games that I was going to. And he's like, you're not doing all of that. You can't go to all those games. And I was like, I'm absolutely going to all of those games. And, he had always told me how my career was more important than him. And that wasn't, my career was important. And I always tried to reassure him how much I loved him, how important he was to me. But this is also extremely important to me. And I'm not going to not do my job because you don't want to not see me on the weekend sometimes. I've worked too hard. There's no way. Mm-hmm. And so that same fight, and we had that fight so many times, but I think just on paper, seeing how much I was going to be away, he was just like, that's not happening. And I mean, that's really what started it. And as we were going back, we were by the pool of where we were about to move in Alabama. It's called Vestavia Hills, like this city. Mm-hmm. And we had lived at that time in Hoover, Alabama, not very far at all. And so after, everything at the pool was done for the night, and it was super late. It was like after midnight. And we were headed home. And he was just talking, getting more angry and angry and angry. And then he lunged at me. And I want to paraphrase all of this and saying I absolutely shouldn't have been driving. It wasn't a very far drive. It was like a couple miles, but I shouldn't have been driving anyway, just because drinking and driving is never a good idea. Mm-hmm. But so he lunged at me and I was like, I didn't know what was about to happen, but I knew that I wasn't going to let him hurt me when I was in a position where I couldn't defend myself without potentially killing us both.
Yeah.
And so I intentionally ran, as we turned into our where we actually lived at the time, I ran off the road, hit a tree to kind of break up all of the nonsense. He got out of the car, you're crazy, you're this, you're that, whatever. And so I'm just sitting there looking at this tree that I just hit, looking at my car, and literally the first thing that comes in my mind is like, how am I going to get to work tomorrow? How am I going to explain this to anyone? And what am I going to do? Because I can't go home. I can't go home. Mm-hmm. And I'd gone home so many times where I knew it was going to be a bad situation, but I knew I couldn't go home that day. I knew it wasn't going to be a good situation. And one of the things when people talk about domestic violence, some of the things people talk about, there's physical, which is where most people's minds go when they think of domestic violence. There's emotional, and then there's financial. And then this was like the complicated part. The financial one was because I made a lot more money. And so he was my husband. Mm-hmm. And so as my husband, he would always say, I'm going to clean out all the accounts. I'm going to take everything. That's what he was telling me the whole time. If you go to all these games, I'm going to clean out all the accounts. I'm going to take everything, and I'm going to go and I'm going to ruin your career. And again, this is a guy who had been going to press conferences and asking people as they walk out of the press conferences sometimes, have you slept with my wife? Are you still sleeping with my wife? How embarrassing. Yeah. like I'm like a respected journalist and like asking these dudes if I had slept with them. So when he's like, I'm going to ruin your career, and he doesn't think anything that he's doing already is like making me look like a joke.
Yeah.
Like, you just, those threats, some people threaten you and you're like, yeah, okay, bring it.
Yeah.
But I knew, if I make the decision to like do these things, and there was never a decision for me to make in terms of my career. I was going to go to these games. I was going to do my job. But I also knew what he was going to do. And that was hard for me. It was hard for me to have this ugly thing and these my decisions put in front of everything that I worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And so,
just one second though. I'm not meaning to cut you off, but just 1 second. So you hit the tree, right? Because I'm still wrapping my head around this part of the story. So you hit the tree. He gets out of the car, right?
Yeah, gets out of the car and walks to our apartment.
And you're still in the car at this point in time. Now, what happened directly after that?
So I'm just like, this is rock bottom. Like, people talk about it. I've never experienced it. Think I'm experiencing it. Mm-hmm. Started drinking. Had some extra alcohol in the car. Just started drinking.
Oh, okay.
Popped the trunk. Had a little bit more. Just slugged it. Like, I've never drank alcohol as quick as I did that. Like, it was like, I think in my story I said, I drank it like it was Gatorade, and I had just finished a marathon because I was so lost. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. And he had, part of domestic violence also is alienating you from the people that care about you the most. So they control you. And so my sister really was my best friend. We had stopped talking because he pretty much made me make a choice, and that's a whole thing. And so I couldn't call her. I didn't feel like I could call her. I didn't feel like I could explain. I didn't want to explain anything to people at work because I already have to deal with in my mind, like, why is your husband here? Why is he asking these crazy questions to these guys about like sleeping with you or whatever? And so I was just stuck. I called him and was like, okay, you can have my money, but like, I want out. Like, you can have all of my money, but please go away.
Okay.
And he was like, fuck you, bitch. I'm going to make the rest of your life a living hell.
Oh.
And so I'm like, cool. So I leave him, and he's determined to like continue to like lurk and try to ruin me and break me down and still control me, even though I've now opted out of this relationship. And staying in the relationship, I couldn't do that either. So I didn't know what to do. I genuinely had no idea what to do. Get out of the car. There's a gas station like a block or two away. Grabbed a bottle of wine, put it on the register, and they're like, it's after 1 a.m. We can't wine. Okay. And then the next thing I remember is like, and I was there. Like, I was there. I did it. Absolutely. I completely own it. But I have no idea like what I was thinking, what I was doing. I just saw myself. It was like I was in like
third person.
Yeah. Out of body type of like experience.
Yeah. I was just watching myself like do these things. And so I walked over, I got a gas can, I got a stick lighter, and I went up to the register and I'm like, can I have a gallon of gas? Went outside, filled up the gas can, walked back to the car, called him again, and I'm like, please, just just like, let me go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll give you whatever you want. Just let me go. Again, no. And then I was like, so I have this gasoline. I have this lighter. I have tried in every possible way to make you feel secure in this relationship, to tell you that I loved you, to tell you that I'm not going to leave you. But you won't believe that. And you keep trying to break me. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it like this and whatever. And so I hung up the phone, poured the gasoline all over myself. And I remember lighting the flame right by my thigh. And I remember like the feeling of my thigh being on fire. And the next thing I remember is like I saw him running to the car. He was, get out of the car, stop, drop, and roll, like take your clothes off. Kind of grabbed me out of the car. I got out of the car. I remember seeing some lights for some ambulance. And again, this is September 8th. Next thing I remember after that was it was November. There was a little Christmas tree in my ICU room at UAB Hospital in Alabama. And like I was alive. And I was so happy to be alive because I had never, I think when people think of like suicide or suicide attempts, they think of these suicidal ideations. And so I've had all these people like, oh, like I know where you were at. I think about hurting myself all the time. I couldn't relate to that. I never had that.
Have you ever like done like any cutting or any type of self-harm at all before that?
Never thought of harming myself a day in my life. Never a day in my life until I did. And so for me, I was so grateful to be alive. I literally, I think, looking back to one thing people have said to me is I had severe like anxiety, like OCD, impulsivity issues. And I was taking Effexor for that, which is a drug for people. It's a drug for depression, but it's for like, it treats anxiety and things like that.
Yeah.
So I was on that. And I think one of the side effects, there are always these like terrifying side effects. One of those side effects is like trying to kill yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's, when you go back to those moments where I'm like going and I'm picking up this gas can and this lighter, I think, some of that could probably be attributed to that. And that's what a lot of like doctors and stuff said. But, it happened. I let it get that far. He's absolutely to blame for a part of it. But I think I also look at, accountability is always like super important for me. And so for me, I look at the situations, obviously he was not a good guy. Obviously he did things that aren't okay. But I also look at like, what was I going through that I justified like some of the decisions I made, just to let myself get back in that relationship. So yeah, I mean, it was hard. I think, being in the hospital, he was my primary caretaker.
Yeah.
He was always there. There were a lot of people that he made feel uncomfortable or didn't allow to come and like see me.
Yeah.
So he was like doing my bandages. He was doing all of that stuff. And that stuff was so confusing to me because.
Did it feel good to have him become caretaker? Or were you still kind of numb to all of it?
I was confused. I was so confused because I'm like, here's this man who I've loved for so much of my life. And then drove me to do something that I could have never imagined myself doing. But now he's right here and he's wrapping my bandages and doing all of these really tough things. So it was really hard to process. And the fact that I was on all these narcotics 24/7, it didn't make it any easier to process because I was never really clear-headed.
Yeah.
But it was challenging, and, for me, the thing that finally got me out of it and made me like clear on everything was when they discharged me to our house and he left me in like a recliner to just, he would go to work and he would just leave me there. They were like, hey, do you need an in-care like person to help her? And he's like, no, like I've got her. but he just kind of went to work and just left me there. I couldn't stand really by myself. I couldn't really move, couldn't go to the bathroom. So I'm just like going to the bathroom on myself. I'm doing all this stuff, and he's just coming back after work. And he would take me, put me in front of the stairs at our house and tell me to go up and down them. And I was wrapped in bandages from head to toe. I could barely move. But now I'm supposed to go up and down these stairs. And I would get so lightheaded that I literally physically couldn't see at some points. I would just see stars as I was trying to go up these stairs. So I'm wrapped from head to toe in bandages, essentially blind, trying to go up and down these stairs. And at some point, you know, and he'd sit me back down in the chair, drink 6, 7, 8, 10 beers, and just sit there and be like, you stupid bitch, all this stuff. And so I was like, at some point I was like, if I don't figure out a way out of this house, I'm going to die in this house. And I didn't survive and go through 65 plus surgeries or whatever it was to die in this house.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. So I called my mom, called the hospital, and was like, I think something's wrong. Had no idea if something was wrong. I just knew I needed a way out, and I needed people to know that I was trying to get out. Got to the hospital. My surgeon was like, you're malnutritioned, your organs are shutting down, and you have like no blood. They brought me back up to ICU, gave me multiple blood transfusions, put me back on a feeding tube. And I so much of the work that my doctors had done had to be redone because I was dying. Like I was only discharged for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Why did you do it? Why did you set the fire? I know that at that moment you were out of body, and you may not have been as understanding of your reasoning then. But now that you've had a chance to sit with it and think about it, why did you do it? Was it to escape? Because you stayed after it happened. So what was your reasoning for setting that fire?
I think for that portion of my life up until that point, I was one of the most prideful people you could ever meet. Like my pride and like was so important to me. And so I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell anyone that as smart as I am, that I was in this situation. I didn't know how to ask for help. And like, why did I think when people are like, oh, like you decided to set yourself on fire. Like if I had ever thought of killing myself, and this isn't to make light of it or anything like that, what an awful way to die is be on fire. Yeah. So I can't explain as to like why I did it. All I can say is why did I try to end my life would be because I didn't, in that moment, I couldn't wrap my mind around doing anything else. I was too prideful to admit to everything. Yeah. That everything had been going on. And I was afraid that if I didn't take matters into my own hands, then I would die at his hands. And I think he had been controlling all of my life for that point, really. He'd been trying to, at least. And so this was something I had control over, is how I die. You know, I don't want to be dead and buried in a river.
So it was a point of you taking your control back.
I think it was. I was trying so hard, and honestly, I'm gonna like. And this is when I called him. When I called him and I told him I have this lighter, I have this gasoline. I was 1,000% bluffing. I wanted him to know how serious I was, and I think I saw the way that like he did in his own twisted way feel like he really, really, really loved me, you know? Yeah. And so I'm like, he's not going to let this go down. But I don't think I think he knew me well enough to know I was bluffing. And then I think I was like, well, this was my last resort. It didn't work. Like, now what? And then I think I just did it. But I was absolutely bluffing. I was absolutely just trying to get him to understand like how seriously miserable I was. And it didn't work.
So it was also to not just regain control of the situation or to find, and this is from what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong, or finding a means of ending it, but being a way to get his attention, to wake him up so that he can understand. Because I read something once, and I also too saw on the Red Talk table about people who cut and people who self-harm. They do these things as a way of taking the pain from the outside, from the inside, and expressing it physically as a means of getting it from, expressing it, Right. So was this, would you say, regaining control, getting his attention to let him understand that you're very serious about the abuse stopping, and then also too being an expression of the suffering and the trauma and the pain that you'd endured up until that point? Would you say that all of that was a culmination of just your experiences with him, or would you say that it was kind of like just a culmination of everything that you'd experienced in life up until that point?
No, I think the fact that I didn't know how to like do a relationship and all of those things are kind of the culmination of my life, that I didn't know how to ask for help, that I didn't, because no one taught me that. But I think for me, the call and the quote unquote like bluff of I'm do this, that was about my control. That was about like, you've been doing all this to me, and I'm gonna threaten you with this big thing.
Oh, got you.
And then I think in the end, I just, when you work so hard to show somebody that you love them and that you're gonna be there for them, and they still have all of this insecurity and they put it on you. Mm-hmm. I feel insecure because
it's codependency.
Or because you're making me feel this way because your job and these guys and all this other stuff is more important to you. I think I felt like I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything. I've tried everything to show you that I'm in this, that I love you, that I care, that I'm here for you. Even though, quite frankly, it didn't make any sense. Like, it didn't make any sense why I was there. But I was like, I in those moments, up until the very end, I was all in on like trying to have a life with him, make him secure, make him the man that I knew he could be, and all these other things. No matter how horrible he was to me, and to be clear, there are always these moments, because people are always like, why did you stay, or what was it, or if everything was that horrible. Not everything was that horrible. There are always redeeming moments where, I have videos that still, sometimes I'll be going through my Google Drive and they'll pop up, and just the look in his eye where he's like, this is the love of my life. And we're just sitting there like watching fireworks. And you're like, those are the reasons I stayed, because when he spoke about the way he loved me and the way he was, I had never experienced anything like that from a parent, from anything. And so I think for me, that was so like special. Yeah. That I wanted to be able to give him the world, and he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't trust it.
Okay. Would you say that this experience has changed you for the better?
Absolutely. Okay. I think, and even just the way I ask myself sometimes, if I had tried to kill myself with pills and I didn't have all these physical, I have a thumb. I don't have fingers. Like, over 85% of my body was burned. Like, the parts of my body that weren't burned were peeled to use for skin grafts. Like, if it wasn't something that I had to look at and face every day in the mirror, I don't know if it would have had the same impact on me. I hope it would. I hope that something that traumatic and something that serious would have woken me up. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. But I know, having to like look at it, there's no way around it. I can't just go back to my life and pretend like nothing ever happened. Every person that sees me wonders like what happened to her? Yeah. Or people ask me, and I'm always better when people ask me, as opposed to just like staring and being like uncomfortable. But I think, I have to face it every single day. Yeah. And so for me, I was like, I've always been very, I was a female sports reporter. I am a female sports reporter. And so for me, people always are like, I thought me being a sports reporter would open doors. People that look like me are doing this at a very high rate. Me doing a really great job at this and putting my head down and doing the work will hopefully open other doors, as opposed to approaches that other people have taken, which was speaking up and using their voice and using their platform to really, really open their mouth and advocate. And so for me, this has made me open my mouth and advocate for mental health, for domestic, against, speaking out for women who are afraid, in these relationships, for females in male-dominated fields, for everything. And I was always just, I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to work, I'm going to worry about me. And now I'm just, and I didn't want to show any weakness. That's what I think you referenced it before, that tweet, that day of, I'm sitting here poolside with the best husband or my great husband or some nonsense I tweeted. Because I wanted to paint this pretty picture of
and
something.
we all do. We all do. And I say that all the time about social media. Is like we sit on social media and we judge other people's lives based on the pictures and the messages that people share with us. And we get jealous. We find ourselves being envious of that. And we have absolutely no idea what's going on in a person's relationship. No, we don't. And because everybody is trying to promote happiness, promote prosperity, because we all want to be seen as being successful or being goals, so to speak. That's why me and Justin wrote a song called Ain't Your Goals, because we've been through a lot, and I don't want people to go through the things that I've gone through to find love, and I don't want people to suffer. So as much as I do show the good, I try not to post good when I'm going through the bad. Because I feel like it's promoting a culture of people feeling like we have to always be good or always be okay, and it's okay to not be okay. Exactly. I'd have a few more questions for you, Natalie. One thing I want to know is, since you've gone through this, what are your thoughts on love now? Are you dating now? Have you found love since this?
Well, I think I learned a lot about myself. I think I took away all of the stuff that I don't even know if it was my family. I think it was just society of this is the picture of success, not just a career success, but life success. It's a family. It's the kids. And again, I love kids. I love love. I love all of that. But I think for me, I look at myself and I'm like, I settled so much and so many of these relationships that I was in. I wasn't really in that many at all. But I think for me, I'm just really, really, really having a love affair with myself. Right. And so I dated one person for a minute and I was like, yeah, I don't know why this was so important to me, because it felt like a job. I was like, why does he text me so much? I don't know. I have things to do. And so for me, it doesn't mean that I won't ever, be in a relationship, or I won't ever go back to dating. But right now, I'm just focused on me, and I'm focused on using all of the darkness and all of the things that I genuinely didn't know or understand about mental health, about what it takes to be in a relationship, not just a romantic relationship, but relationships, period. Yeah. I evaluated each of my friendships and saw what I was putting into them, what I was getting out of them.
Yeah, because they matter too. Our friendships are just as important as our romantic relationships. All of the relationships that we have in our life matter. Yep. We get so stuck on, the romantic part that we forget that other relationships grow us and make this life worth it and matter. Yep. Yeah. What wisdom would you like to impart on people who may find themselves in a similar situation like the one that you were in? What would you like to tell them?
It can be terrifying. It can seem like there's no way out. It can seem like I can't have this become my story. And that's what it was for me. But the alternative, people ask like why do people commit suicide? When I wrote my story and shared my story for the first time, it was after Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade had like committed suicide. And I remember sitting at a hotel bar and someone said to me, why did Kate Spade commit suicide? She has everything. There's no reason to justify it. The first thing I said was, you never know what someone is going through.
You don't.
And the other part was, there's never a way to justify suicide. And I tried to commit suicide. There's never a good reason to do it. And as much as you step back and think of, this is too hard, I'm suffering, there are people, no matter how closed off you may seem or how untraditional your family may be. My family is very untraditional. I think that was part of it for me. People don't understand, like, why didn't you reach out to your family, or why didn't you reach out? The dynamics of my family aren't what you think of necessarily. They aren't maybe what your family or the next person's family is.
Yeah.
That was more difficult for me. So my biggest thing would be, even if it's not your parents, your spouse, your sibling, whoever, there is someone out there that cares about you, that will help you, and live your most authentic life, and you'll never be sorry for it. There are a lot of people that look at me now and think I'm crazy, that I'm insane, but I'm more sane than ever. I'm more proud of myself than ever. And that's just living my truths, acknowledging my truths, and finding power in the saddest and the darkest parts of my truths.
That's good.
Well, thank you. Good. Congratulations for being able to find that. A lot of us are still searching for that. It's terrible that your purpose had to come through such, tragic means, but the fact that you found it is commendable. And I commend you for being so brave to share your story, for not hiding, for passing on the wisdom to other people who may find themselves in the same situation. I applaud you for that, because it takes a lot of guts. You got to be made of some shit to get out there and be honest, and as honest as you've been. Yeah. Do you have any projects, any events? I know that you have your sports media network. Anything you'd like to share with our listeners so that they can find you, or maybe contact you?
So my company is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at NP Sports Media.
Okay.
For all of them. I'm on Instagram at Natalie Pierre 34 and Twitter at Natalie Pierre _. Company right now is working on like a series that I'm super excited about, and it's really just, it's a sports company, so we're doing things tied to sports, but it's really not about sports at all. It's about going deeper and getting to know the people and the struggles and the challenges. Okay. A lot of people we've spoken to, from people in the NBA to people, former college players to other professional players, they haven't shared like those sides of them and those struggles that they've gone through. And so that'll be coming in 2020. I'm super excited for that. And just I'll be around. I'll be sharing my story. I'll try to, provide a light with the darkness.
Perfect. When it comes out, we'll be waiting for it so we can share it with our listeners. But again, we thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Yes, definitely. I'd like to say that I enjoyed it. I saw your perspective on things. And it was, like I said, it was very interesting, and I respect you for coming forward and talking about it and being honest. So, yeah, definitely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We thank you for coming on, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
All right, take care, guys.
Thank you.
All right, take care. So, in closing, I'll do my closing.
You want to do your closing?
Well, it's going to be a few minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I just wanted to say that this story, this was a big story. Yeah. It reminded me of back in the Vietnam War, where the the monks at the time were protesting the Vietnam War. And it was one of the most popular videos that came about at the time when the monk went out and sat on the street corner, poured gasoline on himself, and he set himself on fire. And it changed the event of the war. Yeah. Because
the perspective
at this point in time, people were like, what are we doing? Yeah. You know, it made such a profound statement. And so it's one of those things where, you know, the human emotion and everything builds up, and it turns into this thing of wanting your control back and everything else. And that's kind of what they did when they did that. Yeah. They actually, it caused the turn. Yeah. And so with that being said, you know, just talking about abusive and toxic things, toxicity, I should so say. I'm sorry, a little tongue-tied here. But, you know, I just wanted to just go down just a quick list. It'll only take 1 minute here. Okay. Quick. But just, you know, just letting people know the awareness of emotional and the abuse with the emotional, physical, but, you know, the attack on your self-esteem. Yeah. Beware of how that looks. Understand that today, a lot of times, people's toxic behavior has been normalized. Yeah. So, you know, don't let people try to tell you, oh, that's just the way it is. Yeah. You know, all they is just, you know, he's being mean to you. You know, no, that nigga don't like you. Yeah. He likes the fact of you. Yeah. But he don't like you. Yeah. So you got to be careful with that types of stuff. You know, that's the dangerously in love type scenario that you really don't want to be in because the outcome can mean something else. Often too, another thing I see is that they always try to minimize the blow of the abuse, you know. So the abusers always try to tend to come in, and then they try to, you know, shift the blame a lot of times, or they try to do certain things to make it seem, oh, it wasn't that bad. It's just a black eye, you know. It just, you know, it's only on one side of your face, you know, but it's still a black eye at the end of the day. Yeah. Another thing is, of course, relationships are not perfect. You know, in this society, we're striving for this perfect relationship. We want this, you want this perfect wife, and she look a certain way, and she's like, oh yeah, and she got all this. You're looking for this dude, he's perfect in this way, and all this and all that. You don't know how love is going to come towards you. It's not going to be packaged the way that you think it's going to be packaged. It never is. You know, so you have to understand what it looks like and understand how it makes you feel. Not just what you think you want and you won't accept because it doesn't come in the package that you want. And I think a lot of times when people chase that, they end up getting stuck in, you know, some other shit. And then another thing is, you know, the whole patching of it. You know, oh, he's going through a rough patch. It's a 10-year rough patch of abuse. You know, by the 11th year, he should straighten out. You know, that's the thing that my mom used to always fall for. Nah, that shit ain't straightening out. He's letting you know he's gonna abuse you for the rest of your life.
Yes, that's who he is.
Yeah, that's who he is.
Or who she is, because you got some abusive ass women out there.
Exactly. So that keeps going on, and that keeps, you know, the whole thing. But the last thing is, you know, understanding what you're getting into, because once you start to get into it, yes, it can be hard to get out, especially once it involves marriage, business, finances, kids, you know, all this other stuff that has to split, and then you have to literally get a crowbar and you have to pull up all the plywood off the floor because that's how hard it is for you two to separate. Think about that before you just jump into a relationship just to jump into it for the sake of Instagram. Yeah. Okay. So that's all I want to say. But that's kind of how I wanted to end it. Just understand that, you know, and also to understand what it is when you get in these relationships and then you have children that view it, and then now you pass that trauma and that crazy shit onto them. Yeah. So stop the cycle if you can. The cycle. If you have the emotional stability, if you have a mind to say, I'm going to stop this here so that my kids don't have to continue this cycle and they not have any examples of what a relationship should look like. Exactly. Be the example. Yeah, you know, we always say, well, it happened. I do this to you because it happened to me, and we perpetuate that excuse, and then it happens generation after generation. But if it can stop with you, let that shit stop with you. Yeah, let it stop. You know, it's not worth it, man. But the last thing I want to say is that if you don't have, like Natalie mentioned, not having, feeling like she could talk to people, there are hotlines, there are websites. One that I pulled up is thehotline.org. That's THEHOTLINE.org. The 800 number that you can call if you want to speak with somebody or you can chat with somebody. But it's 1-800-799
7233. And I'll put this information up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere, so that you'll know this number and this website, so you can go and get the help if you need the help, so that you won't be in a situation where you're alone.
Yes, exactly.
But if you want to find us, we're the same place.
Yes.
Every week, which is at Date Night with the Crafts. Every Thursday, 7 p.m. Y'all make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Subscribe to the YouTube page, please. Go there, click on the subscribe button. It only takes 1 second. It doesn't. Don't act like you hit the button and that's a deduction comes out of your bank account. It doesn't happen.
This is free.
It never happens. It's free.
Go support. SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify. Go and subscribe. Like it, rate it, comment, share it.
Please share it.
Yes, please. And let us know how you feel.
Yeah.
And also, too, if you have Apple listeners, y'all go and y'all rate and review, because that's good for us. We'll be able to get high up on these lists. My goal at some point for 2020, which we'll talk about, is to actually tour the show.
Yeah.
So
you can see our craziness in person.
Yes, we can share it with you in person. Just some of Justin's craziness can rub off on y'all, I'm pretty saying. Definitely. And also, too, we still have the Asking for a Friend segment. So go to our DMs, or you can email us at info@datenightwiththecrafts.com. Ask us. We keep everything confidential. 100%. Your privacy will be intact. You don't have to worry about us sharing your name, your address, your phone number.
None of that good
shit. We won't do any of that. No. But that's our show, and this is our last show for 2019.
Yeah, last show. So we'll see you. We already know we'll see you next year.
See you next year.
Corny ass shit. But yeah, we'll definitely see you next year with more to come.
Yes.
And like I said, we look forward to entertaining and more great topics and more great discussions.
Yes.
2020 is going to be a big year.
Yes, it will be.
Super big.
So y'all stay tuned.
All right.
We thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a good evening and enjoy your date nights this weekend.
Enjoy your date night.
All
Love
right.
you. Mwah. Bye-bye.
Bye.